Continuing on, step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. We're going to look at the 4th column of the resentment inventory now. So let's turn to page 19 of the step guide. And just follow through. The reading for this part of this step is on page 65 to 67, and we're going to read that in its entirety, and I'm going to read it, and I'm going to comment on it as I go. And this is like the biggest deal that there is, what we're fixing to do. You know, when I was in grade school, the math teacher showed us the number line, starting with 0 in the middle and minus numbers going this way and plus numbers going this way. We all remember that, right? Simple enough. They're opposites, opposite ends of the spectrum. Resentment is, according to the book, poison. The dubious luxury of normal men, whether it's fancied or real. I'm reading out the guidebook. It has the power to actually kill. The opposite is the sunlight of the Spirit. So going by that logic, if the sunlight of the Spirit is as far to the right as you can get on the plus, the farthest you can get to the left is resentment. And this is a problem because we just wrote down these resentments that made perfect sense to us. I mean, who wouldn't be mad at Mindy? Who wouldn't be mad at the insurance company? Who wouldn't resent the principle of pain? So what are we going to do about it? So let's go to the book, the big book, page 65. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore ourselves. Now, interestingly enough, the big book isn't telling us that we're wrong if we have resentment, and it's all our fault. It says that it's apparent that the world and its people are often quite wrong. These insurance companies are often quite wrong. Mindy is wrong. Maybe Payne is wrong. We're not saying it's not. We're just saying that for us, resentment is not what we're after. So what are we going to do to get rid of it? We're not going to say that it's all our fault and these other people are not wrong. They are wrong. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain to see that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns, and we drink again, and with us to drink is to die. When I was in school, they showed me a number line where these are the plus numbers and these are the minus numbers. If the sunlight of the Spirit is far on the plus, where we're trying to be, the book is telling me that resentment is an indication that I'm far on the left, which is not where I want to be. And that this can be poison to me, whether I'm alcoholic or not. And if it's true that other people can cause me to have resentment, that means that it's true that other people, Mindy talks bad about me, it's like shooting poison in my veins. If it's true that these insurance companies, because they're often quite wrong, are doing what they're doing, and I'm full of resentment because of it, it's like that insurance company has the power to fill me full of poison. And that's not where I want to live. So I want to figure out something to do about this resentment where it doesn't require the insurance company to straighten up their act. And it doesn't require Mindy to straighten out her act, because I can't do anything about Mindy or the insurance company or pain. But I know I don't want to be full of resentment because it takes me out of the sunlight of the Spirit. Now, I didn't know that about resentment, and I'm still maybe not completely sure that resentment does that, but that's what the book says. So I'm going to just act like it's true for a while and see where it goes. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. We turn back to the list, and I think that the list we're turning back to is the list that has our 3 columns on it, for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. If an alcoholic has to have the sunlight of the Spirit to keep their sanity, to not take the first drink, and if resentment takes that sunlight of the Spirit away from them, it has the power to actually kill. Look, there's this rumor going around that alcoholics are the kind of people, and I don't believe this about alcoholics that I know, they're the kind of people that can't handle emotion. I don't believe that. I've seen alcoholics handle every emotional strain that there is in good health and sobriety, firsthand, hundreds of times, thousands of times. Resentment, the emotion, is not what causes us to drink. But resentment is an indication that we are out of the sunlight of the Spirit. And the sunlight of the Spirit is what keeps our sanity in check. So it's not that, oh, I can't handle being mad if I'm an alcoholic. That's not it. It's that, hey, this isn't good for me. Whether I'm alcoholic or not, it isn't good for me. Resentment is a symptom of not being in the sunlight of the Spirit. I've lost perspective somehow. So I'm trying to regain my perspective, because if I don't regain my perspective, Mindy can keep doing what Mindy does, and I can keep being pissed off, and it's not good for me. The insurance companies can keep doing what they're doing, and it's not good for me because it bothers me. How could we escape? You know, that last thing we read, we were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. I mean, I'm ready to look at this from a different angle. You got a different angle to look at this? How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. Dude, as much as I try to pretend that the insurance company doesn't bother me, it does bother me. As much as I try to pretend that stuff Mindy does doesn't bother me, it does. I can't pretend, I can't wish it away, it's just there. If I'm honest, it's there. I'm pissed. And it's not good for me, so what am I going to do? Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. Click. Mindy's sick. Could be. Insurance companies are sick. Could be. Could be. Okay, now there's something I hadn't thought of. That's a little something. Keep a thumb on that. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Now, I hadn't thought of that one. I'm going to ask God to help me be nice to Mindy? I don't think so. Well, wait a minute. I'm willing to look at this from an entirely different angle. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Have you ever known a friend that's in the hospital, they just had surgery, they're on some kind of dope, they don't even know where they're at, and they're making all kinds of crazy statements and calling you names and all that? What do you think? You think, well, he's sick. They got him on something that makes him crazy, so big deal. So that's kind of part of it. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? Now this doesn't mean that you go to Mindy and say, Mindy, look, I know you're sick. It says when a person offended, we ask ourselves. We said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry, thy will be done. The next instruction, we avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick friends that way. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one of them. Okay, and then we're going a little bit deeper. So I'm treating this person like a sick person. I'm looking at Mindy like she's sick. I'm looking at an institution like it's sick, which it can be, whether it's a government or a hospital or an insurance company or whatever, it's a religion. It could be sick, okay. Now, remember, I'm willing to look at this from an entirely different angle. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely look for our own mistakes. And it gives 4 possibilities of a mistake that we're making. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person entirely. I'm going to the 4th column. My mistakes. Who has the mic? Andrew? The insurance company. What's your mistake with the insurance company? You said that the insurance company, you pay, and they deny, and it's not right. And it affects your financial security, your emotional security, your sense of worth even, because you start to doubt yourself and your judgments. It affects your relationships with some of the adjusters and your ambitions to get ahead. The book says that the only reason you have this resentment is because you're making a mistake on your own right. And the possibility of your mistakes is that you're being selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or frightened. So when we took a preliminary look at this resentment, we looked at our self-esteem, and we said, you know what, that insurance company's messing with my self-esteem. We looked at our emotional security. We said, that insurance company's messing up my and they're definitely messing up my financial security. What do you think selfish means here? Let's read what we have in our guidebook. Let's look at the definition on page 19 in our guidebook. Selfish, managing our life in order to set the stage to suit our idea of success. Remember when we talked about life is unmanageable and how the actor is trying to run the whole show? That's our selfishness, our inability to manage and run the show as an actor. That's our selfishness. Our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. That's a mistake. The book describes that situation as a mistake. Dishonest, indirect, manipulative, secretive, and lying. Self-seeking, thinking of ourselves ahead of others. unable or unwilling to consider the other parties involved, frightened that who we resent in each situation can and is injuring us in the ways we've described in column 3. So Andrew, the book is saying, well, it was nice thinking that the insurance company was causing that resentment, but we don't think that's right. And number 2, if it is the insurance that caused it, there's nothing you can do about it. So do you want to do something about this resentment?
Absolutely.
Are you willing to look at it from an entirely different angle?
Definitely.
Okay, so the entirely different angle would be to ask ourselves, how am I setting myself up to have this resentment? What kind of an actor are you?
So definitely a self-seeking actor.
What's your act? Are you mean, egotistical, or are you the virtuous guy?
Depends if the adjuster pissed me off or not, or if I'm the virtuous guy, if I'm trying to swindle and be dishonest, maybe ask them for something I really don't need or don't deserve. So I can be both.
Either way, self-centeredness is you attempting to manage your world using your ego's tools.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you think you've been selfish in this case?
Definitely.
Okay, but really, I mean, we're not just trying to say this, we're trying to see it, what it really is.
So being selfish in the fact, and more maybe self-seeking, that the insurance company's 100% wrong, that I'm, I said that a little bit before, they have a boss too. They're trying to do a job just like I'm trying to do a job. They're running a business just like I'm running a business. And so it's pretty self-seeking of me thinking, that I'm the only one here in this situation.
So if your act is to look good or to be in control, and these guys are throwing wrenches out there, it could be your act is being interfered with more than anything else.
Definitely.
That would be your selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a little hard, especially we're just getting into this. This is some high-level stuff. Steve would say this is 2.0 right here. So let's say, yeah, okay, maybe I'm being selfish here. Maybe this is a result of me being an actor. Maybe I am resentful strictly because I can't get my act to work. But it's really hard to see. It's a little gray. Dishonest. Am I being dishonest?
For the most part, in my side of things with insurance companies, no. What I'm asking for is legitimately required, or we're doing to vehicles.
Okay.
So I don't think that one really applies here on my part.
And the other thing about dishonesty that's so hard is that we're so good at it, it's hard to see. So I don't know, man. This is a hard question too. So I'm asking myself these 4 questions. And so far, okay, I see a little gray here. I can see where I'm trying to manage the world and it isn't working just right. Maybe I haven't been as direct as I could be with these people. Maybe that's part of my resentment, is that they put me in the spot to have to be confronting this all the time, and I don't like to have to confront it all the time because my actor doesn't like to be put in that spot. Could be some of that. But this is all some theoretical, psychological kind of stuff, We're just people. Self-seeking.
Yet, for sure, we just touched on that, thinking I'm the only one in these interactions, with insurance companies that has somebody to answer to, that has, they're trying to protect their financial security and not paying for stuff just like I'm trying to, so it's 2 sides of the same coin.
Okay. And that's pretty black and white there.
Yep.
I really haven't stopped to think about this other guy, what he's having to do. That's a piece of it. That's self-seeking. Selfishness is my act, my way of trying to manage the world, me playing my instrument regardless of what you guys are doing. That's selfishness. Dishonesty is me not liking to have to just face the facts all the time, me not just being okay with who I am, honest, straight up the way I am. And self-seeking is different in that I haven't thought of the other people involved. There are other people involved. That's different than selfishness. Frightened.
Absolutely.
Okay, what are you frightened of?
That I'm not going to be able to make my living, constantly getting told no. Maybe that I'm not going to be getting a raise because I'm not performing at a high level, so that'll affect my security. The self-esteem thing, maybe I'm not good enough at my job to get these people to pay for what they need to pay for.
Did you have something under self-esteem? You did, right?
Yeah.
Did you have something under emotional security?
Yep.
Did you have something under financial security?
Yep.
Did you have something under personal relations?
Yep.
You did not have anything under sex relations, but you did have something under ambitions.
Correct.
Look, dude, you're the guy that 30 minutes ago we talked about step 3 in asking God to take you and do whatever he wants with you and take you right into that door, into your new life. And yet you think the insurance company has something to do with your self-esteem? A damn insurance company has something to do with my self-esteem? My self-esteem is because God made me, and he made me good. Not because I'm able to do the act right and get everybody to approve and get all the ducks lined up. I have self-esteem because I do. Why am I going around thinking that this insurance company is messing up my self-esteem? That's fear. I'm frightened that these people are interfering with my self-esteem. I'm frightened that this insurance company can interfere with my financial security. Really? Remember we had this up here earlier with the all power and knowledge and he's everything and all that stuff? But yet we fall into this fear that our financial security is subject to the insurance company's dictates. Could that fit with all of these things, all these red marks? Could be fear on my part that they have anything to do with any of that stuff? It sure seems like they have something to do with my finances, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
What if they don't? Remember, we're prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. My sponsor's telling me this stuff, and I'm telling him, dude, that isn't true. They do have something to do with my self-esteem or this guy that's helping me, and he says, well, they don't. I said, well, that's stupid. He said, you said you were willing to look at it from an entirely different angle. Are you at least willing, Dennis, to toy with the idea that this insurance company has nothing to do with your self-esteem and your financial security or any of this stuff? Well, okay, I'm willing to toy with that idea. He said, well, if it's true, no longer do they have the power to kill you because they don't have the power to give you resentment. Because the injury that you perceive does not exist. That's an entirely different angle. Let's move on to Pete's, unless you got something else you want to add to it.
Good, thank you.
Okay, let's move to Pete's and see if we can come up with the same thing. See if his fits the same way. You want to give that to Pete?
I got.
Oh,
yeah.
you got one, okay. All right, Pete, Mindy, slander. Did you have something in this column? Well, let's start with selfish. What is your selfish way of living, Pete? Your act? What instrument do you play?
Well, my act is the kind, virtuous, all that, but my act is maintaining a reputation that I may not deserve. It's maintaining a certain reputation of who I want people to think I am.
Now, when you were first writing this inventory, you didn't know that about yourself completely, but today you do, correct? Okay, so knowing that about yourself, you can see where your selfish act of trying to be the kind of person that has a good reputation Man, Mindy really trumped on that deal, didn't she?
Right. Yep.
I mean, she smashed it. So your selfish act of thinking that you had to act like you've got a reputation, could you say that she has nothing to do with that? That if you quit that act, Mindy no longer has any power over you?
Yeah. Yeah. If I quit that act, if that's not my driving force, then yeah.
This is looking at it from an entirely different angle, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about dishonesty? Do you like to be honest?
I like to be honest, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Isn't it a pain in the ass to always have to
Yeah,
be
it-
confronting
it's- it
everything,
makes-
and calling everything? And
Yeah. It makes, yeah.
it's work.
Yeah.
What about self-seeking in your case?
Well, self-seeking is, who are you to mess up my act here? This isn't your pain and your anger is not what's important. It's you messing up
Yeah.
my thing.
Okay.
It's this about.
And then we get down, just like we did it with Andrew, we get to frightened. Did you have something under self-esteem?
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Big something. Did you have something under emotional security?
Yeah.
Did you have something under financial security
Yeah.
with your mom and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you have something under personal relations?
Yeah.
All kinds of personal relations that were being interfered with.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have something under sex relations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, you did, because your new girlfriend and Mindy and all that, and ambition. So you had all this stuff. And then when you got to frightened, it's interesting, it says we resolutely look for our own mistakes. Why are we resolutely looking for our own mistake here? Well, because we want to figure out how this is our fault. I want my resentment to be my fault. Because I want to be able to do something about it. If it's truly Mindy's fault, there ain't anything I can do about it. Except try to get Mindy to change, and that ain't never worked. I want the resentment to be my fault, so I'm going to resolutely look for why it's my fault. And it's my fault not because I'm bad, but because I've been making a mistake. What did it call those four things? We resolutely look for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Mistakes. It's a mistake to be frightened. That's a mistake. That's an interesting word, don't you think? A mistake. Well, what do you mean a mistake? Well, a mistake means that I made a mistake. I did something, I misinterpreted something. I checked the wrong box. I made a mistake. And the mistake that I'm making is thinking that Mindy has something to do with my self-esteem. Or Mindy has something to do with my emotional security. It's almost like this is a trap, this AA resentment inventory. It's like it leads us to admit it. Yeah, this person did all this bad stuff and it messed up all this stuff. And then we get to the fourth column, but we got to say, because I'm willing to look at it from an entirely different angle, and because I'm resolutely looking for my own mistakes so that I can do something about this, I've got to realize they set me up. Mindy has nothing to do with my self-esteem. It's like when you have a resentment against your boss and sure enough your financial security's up there. Does your boss have something to do with your financial security, really? Or is your higher power taking you out that door towards the path of finances he wants you to have? This is crazy. This is looking at it from an entirely different angle. I'm willing to look at my act has been an act where I need people to admire me and respect me and to give me a good reputation. That's just an act, though. That's a mistake. Selfishness is a mistake. Dishonesty is a mistake. Thinking that just who I am, just the way I am, with just the stuff that I have is not enough That's a dishonest mistake. Self-seeking, thinking that I have a right to lord it over other people or not even consider them, is a mistake. If I really think they don't have rights, what do I think about myself? If all men are created equal, that means that all men are created equal. And if I act like they're not equal to me, then I don't see myself as equal to them. And frightened is a mistake. I'm afraid that these people, these institutions, and these principles have power over my self-esteem, my emotional security, my financial security, my personal relations, my sex relations, and my ambitions. It's almost like the big book is defining these things as things that are of a higher power, and other people have no power over them. It's almost like other people have no power over them, lest it be given by the higher power. Would you say that your sense of reputation is important to you, Pete?
Today?
Then,
Well, yeah.
had you ever considered the possibility that it was a mistake?
Then?
Yeah.
Perhaps. Maybe. Yeah.
This part of the inventory, I know we can't overemphasize this. We are resolutely looking for our own mistake. This is really hard to see, but we're willing to look at it from an entirely different angle because we want this to be our fault. All these years, we've blamed other people for our resentments, wanting it to be their fault. Their fault, their fault. Justified resentment, justified anger. And what has it done? It's kept us over here out of the sunlight of the Spirit. And I don't want that anymore. There is no fix to this unless I figure out where my resentment is my fault, my mistake. And the 4 mistakes are simple things: selfishness, my way of acting, dishonest, my inability to just be who I am, self-seeking, not considering other people, and being afraid that other people have anything to do with those 6 things in the middle of that board. You don't have to believe this. It's just something we toy with at this point. This is just the 4th step after all. JR, you want to take a stab at it?
All right, so I got pain, and it affects every area of my existence, all of my 3rd column. Selfish is what you described when you were talking in step 1 about being ego-centered and creating an act to defend me from the world. So I've been living a defensive life, which has been selfish. And it's been a life of trying to avoid pain, interestingly enough. If you boiled it all down, I would say that that's what it's been about, is how to avoid pain. So yeah, my actor is, well, I'm virtuous and kind and self-sacrificing and modest up to a point. And then I generally will switch gears if that isn't working for me, and I'll go to other tactics, which may be mean, egotistical, and selfish. And dishonest. I'm honest as long as it suits me, as a rule. So that's kind of hard to admit, by the way. So I would say if that takes us into dishonesty, I would say that there's a few areas that I'm dishonest here. One of the areas was when I was talking about self-esteem, that maybe God doesn't love me. That idea that creeps in. Because I'm having pain, maybe God doesn't favor me. Maybe God doesn't love me. I think a lot of my life, I have been looking for ways to disprove the existence of God, or to at least prove that He's not my friend, and therefore I don't need to be His friend. That's hard to admit, too. These have been some hard things for me to acknowledge. So I've been looking for reasons not to align with God, and I've used pain as an excuse. The other dishonesty that I've had around pain has been maybe just not acknowledging the reality. I don't think that love, for instance, is possible without the existence of pain. I think that it has to be there. We have to have a choice not to align our will with God's will in order for love to even exist. So pain, I think they call that the problem of pain. The other level of dishonesty that I've had around pain is that probably a lot of my pain has been self-inflicted by my own decisions, by my defensive living tactics. I have been, in order to avoid pain, I will invest in something that I would call what the expediency of the moment. I will take the easier, softer way, I think they call it. So when I do that, I may be avoiding pain for the moment, but I definitely increase the duration of my pain. So one of the things that I've learned is that in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm actually going to show up and volunteer for a certain amount of pain, with the understanding that the total amount of pain that I'm going to experience in the big picture is going to be less, as opposed to my old tactic of living, which is to avoid pain and just ultimately end up having a life that's pretty painful all the time. Self-seeking. Believing that I'm the center of the universe, really, or wanting to believe that. Thinking that I'm the only thing in this equation that matters. And that if God's going to love me, and if God's going to favor me, then He needs to give me what I want, when I want, and how I want it. Which is what I would call having my cake and eat it too. And then frightened. Being afraid. One of the reasons why I've been trying a lot of my life to disprove the existence of God, or to separate myself from God by putting us on opposite sides, is because really somewhere inside I'm frightened that He doesn't exist and that He's not going to love me if He does. And like I said, I've been living a frightened life of defensiveness. I've been living a defensive life because I'm afraid of pain. And so one of the big keys for me is to accept. Acceptance is what this really comes down to. If I can accept that pain is a part of life, if I can accept that God, there is a power greater than me, and that power loves me, and that's been a really difficult thing for me to accept. The fact that there is a power is one thing, but accepting that there's a power that's interested in me and truly loves me has been a hard one. But if I can make a decision that I'm going to do that on a day-to-day basis, and I'm going to focus on what's in front of me and just do what I'm assigned, at the very least, I don't have the pain of fretting over what's going to happen next, which has been a big part of my pain, worrying about the pain that's going to happen. And you know what? The reality is that maybe a lot of the time it doesn't even happen. And I spend a lot of time in pain worrying about it.
So here I am, a counselor at a treatment center, running group therapy, listening to people's resentments, trying to help them see where maybe they could look at it different, but understanding that these interferences in their life are real. And yes, I can see where you're coming from and empathizing with these people and their resentment. And then I asked one of these AA guys to help me understand my own resentment. And he has me write my first 3 columns. And one of the simple ones was, I resent my wife because she criticizes me for something I couldn't tell you what it was at the time. And it affects my self-esteem. That's simple. And this guy that was helping me said, and see, in group therapy, we would have talked about that for a half an hour. And this guy says to me, Dennis, what does your wife have to do with your self-esteem? And I'm thinking, well, she's got everything to do with it. Everybody knows that. When your wife criticizes you, it hurts your self-esteem. And he says to me, it said we're willing to look at it from an entirely different angle. And we're resolutely look for our own mistakes. He says, what if your wife has nothing to do with your self-esteem? Would that change things? I said, well, yeah, but she does. He says, well, what if she doesn't? Are you willing to toy with an entirely different way of looking at this? Are you willing to consider the possibility that you're just afraid that she has power over your self-esteem? Now, I know that's an ultra simple example, but it is that simple. If it's true that other people, institutions, and principles have nothing to do with our self-esteem and our security and the relationships that God wants us to have and the sexuality that we have and the ambitions that He's going to give us taking us through that door, this resentment is of our own making and our own fear. Now, this is just the 4th step. There's more. There's a lot more. But at least we can stop and say, wow, I'm willing to consider that. That's the 4th column.